Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. We bring you thought-provoking guests and topics every week to challenge your thinking about leadership. Our aim is to help you become the leader that you wish you always had as we learn together and lead together. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm greatly honoured today to be joined by Kristine Bondoc. Kristine is a global trotter who's worked in companies all around the world, and she's an energetic and very proud Filipina. She's got deep experience in the area of business process outsourcing, but has also worked in other fields as an experienced leader, a mentor, an entrepreneur, and an executive. And today we're going to unpack a little bit some of that great experience that she's had, with an underlying tone about understanding what happens in cultures in companies around the world, around things like corporate turnarounds that she's been involved in, and some of the stresses that we see in the workplace today in areas like the BPO industry. So, Kristine, thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a great pleasure to have you here. Please say hello to our audience and give us a taste of that very rich background of yours and what led you to be with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everybody. And again, Mick, I've been listening to your podcast for quite some few days now, and I think it's been more enriching for me. I was born and raised here in the Philippines, educated abroad. Had a fairly great childhood, but I think, I credit my open-mindedness to living in 9 cities apart from just Metro Manila. So uprooting my life, living somewhere else actually opened my eyes to many things. So that's what got me here. And now I'm back. It's full circle. So I'm back in Manila.
So give us a little bit more details about the 9 cities that you've been living and working in.
I've lived here in the Philippines in Davao. That was because of work. That's where I actually met Rika. So it was, at that time, my company just assigned me there. And, Davao is unique in that it had a different language and different culture from that of Manila. So it also has a very islandish vibe. And being a city girl all my life, it took a lot of adjustment. And I think it prepared me to the next city that I actually lived in, which is Jamaica. So in Jamaica, I lived in, country, it's Jamaica, but I lived in Kingston, right? So it's actually more of a city, but it still had that island vibe. But it allowed me to, appreciate that outside of work where it's so fast paced, the moment I have my downtime, that it's actually a true downtime with less distractions coming from living in the city, where if you're here, the moment you go down, there's just so many things to do. So in there, I was actually able to reflect a lot and discover more about myself. And, other cities that I've lived in are probably a little bit less significant because it was for school. And, when you're in school, I studied in Hong Kong and in London. People tend to be more friendly. They're looking for, friends. So it was easy to integrate, right? It was easy to find some things to do, to hang out with another person during the weekends. But in Davao and Jamaica, it was work. So it's not as if your workmates would want to be friends with you too, right? So they all have families. So that journey actually allowed me to be more open. I used to be, I think, very guarded. But when you live in cities with a different language, different culture, I was able to just be more open to making friends outside of my circle. So that's what I learned there. And that, it's not always that my culture is right or what I know as my value set is always right. But at the very core, you find out that there are many things that could be different and the same, at the same time. So
I got to share with you that one of the good friends of the show, Lee Prosenjak, he lives in the Bahamas, and it sounds similar to what you're talking about in Jamaica, where he works very hard, but then at the end of the workday, I know he's listening, that's why I'm saying this, but at the end of the workday, he gets to walk on the beach in the Bahamas, right, and spend some time with himself and with his wife when she's there, etc. So, yeah, I kind of like this thought of being able to work hard, but then also be able to shut off. And so many of us struggle to shut off at the end of the work. Did you take any of those lessons from Davao and from Jamaica into what you do today? Like, how did you replicate that when you're now back in, you called it island life before. How do you replicate island life? I think this is one for all of us. So many of us are living in cities. How can we replicate some of those gems of island life into our city lives? Is that possible?
In Jamaica, they always say, Jamaica, no problem, right? Jamaica, no problem. And it actually, I think I was able to bring that in because I used to be so high strung at work, right? Very passionate leader. And, I think I lack that poise when it comes to really high stress situations. I can lead people, right? That's not a problem. But I also get carried away when there are certain things that go wrong. That has a lot to do with wanting control. But I think in Jamaica, you realize that, hey, the whole world doesn't revolve around a certain cultural fit or system that I got used to in some of the cities that I've lived in. It's not the same as Hong Kong. It's not the same as London. It's not the same as Manila. So there, it's different. It's a little bit slower paced, and I needed to understand that. And it doesn't mean that it's not productive. It still is. But how I was able to bring it back here is, I tend to now appreciate that, slower paced life might actually have, contributed to my own health and my own self-awareness around, just letting things be. While in the background, you continue to drive it, right? Because you can't always just be high strung with work. And, linking it back to what you said earlier about post-work rituals, I think now I'm with a good company, right? I'm with a good BPO that allows us to shut down by a certain hour, which is at around 5:30 in the morning. So, in Jamaica, there's basically nothing to do. With my old self, I probably would be so bored and trying to find the next thing or overextending at work. But now, I find that it's more comfortable being quiet and not looking for the next event or the next meetup with friends. I think I'm more serene now in the way that I run my life.
Okay. So what I'm hearing there, Kristine, is you were a high-stress, high-strung executive. You went on what seems to be quite a transformative journey over there to Jamaica, and I'll add Davao in there as well, the island life. And now you're saying that there's, yes, still work hard, still productive, but there's an element of serenity that is now coming in. Tell me what positive impact comes from that ability to balance work and the serenity that you're now achieving.
It allows you to create. I kid you not, because being high strung and being in the middle, always in the middle of the storm, being reactive to that, it makes you execute, right? It makes you decide fast. So that's a different part of me. But then now, when I have time to just reflect or sit down, sip my coffee real slow, I get up a little bit earlier in the morning, right? And be content with the quietness of what's going on. I'm able to reflect on, how I reacted to certain situations. So then I can course correct, say sorry if I need to. Or it also allows me to create and build ideas. Because in the quiet, when you start to think of things and think of the problem, you're able to dismantle it and then think of a solution and another solution. Actually, that's how much quiet time I have now. So I think that's the silence and the serenity allows me to be able to expand and create, and that's something that I think is invaluable in the role that I have now at work.
I think there's a really valuable lesson already coming out of this, Kristine, and I'd like to play it back to you. But please don't let me put words in your mouth. If I overplay this or if I get it wrong, just go ahead and correct it. I definitely won't be offended by that, because we want to make this a great learning. So,
Sure.
In my view, there's a lot of people out there that are busy being busy. They're not busy being productive. They're busy being busy. They're chasing their tail, and they get into this mode where they're reacting, not responding. Reacting is when a situation happens at work and you just give the instant answer, whatever pops into your head, and then off you go, instead of taking a beat, taking a breath, reflecting, thinking it through and responding. And it's that less cluttered mind that can make clearer decisions and can be creative and can find that third option that no one was even thinking of, because your mind is not racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. How does that sit with you?
It sits well with me. I think, it's not necessarily bad. I don't want to paint a picture that it's bad to be in the middle of things, in the middle of chaos, right? I think what you and I are trying to say is, just step away for a little bit so that you can make better decisions, and again, your mind can't create when it's cluttered. That's at least one of the things that I've learned being quiet. And living in the city is very distracting. There's just so many things going on, events to join, people asking you out the moment you step down. It's over. I think in a way it overstimulates a person's mind. So, and it's hard to unlearn that, because when I first lived in Davao, I actually was, trying to read one of the books that I brought there. I think this was Deepak Chopra at that time. And I was hearing crickets, and it was bothering me. It was bothering me, compared to like a loud cell phone ringing, loud cars, fast cars passing by my apartment, or, the fire truck going off, right? And loud music playing at my neighbors. And then now, wow, all of a sudden I'm hearing crickets. And I found it very uncomfortable. But like I said, I always say my life in Davao prepared me for the next life in Jamaica, which was equally quiet too. And I lived by myself, mind you. So there were no other person when I get home to unload or unpack the stresses that I had at work. So I had to deal with it on my own and find my inner strength around that.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So I'm hearing two things. One is that the brain and the person habituates to their environment. So if you've got all of that noise going on, you kind of habituate to that, and it feels different when it's not there. And that any time that you displace yourself, there's an adjustment period that we need to maybe work on and realize that there'll be an adjustment that we need to do. Really interesting. We are the Leadership Project, Kristine, so I'd like to convert everything that we just said into specifically a leadership lesson.
Sure.
So tell me this balance between busy and serene. What makes that important for a leader to show up with some level of balance there?
Well, balance, like I want to go back to my earlier point. Balance allows you to create. When I say create, it allows you to create, org charts, systems, processes, right? Because when there's a form of imbalance and you can't regulate, a lot of the time, the focus becomes more on the problem rather than creating the solution itself. Oh, I didn't have the budget for this. This is why I can't buy that. Or, I can't, I wasn't allowed to hire. Therefore, I can't create the workload that I want for my team. Right. So those are the things that if a person is not balanced, they will dwell on. And it has a lot to do with somebody's mode of thinking and looking at the other side. So if you're imbalanced, the stress, your cortisol levels is high, so you tend to actually go on fight or flight mode too. So then as a leader, you become very unhinged and not poised. You're snappy, you're grumpy, right? So if you don't reflect and balance, your team will also find like, what's wrong with her? I don't want to work with her on this project. But if you strike the balance, right, within yourself, then you're able to, have fun, create that harmonious team relationship, and then also allow yourself to be humble in that, if you reflect within the day, find the balance and apologize to those that, you've hurt for the day. Because the end of the day, it's never just a one-person job. It is a team job. So if your team doesn't feel acknowledged and valued, they won't execute for the company and for you. And they will not listen to what you want. They may execute, but they're against it, and you'll see them quit. And then again, it's a repetitive cycle of being stressed out, onboarding somebody. So then you added another task to what already is a long laundry list of things to do.
There's a lot to unpack there, Kristine. I think some of those things are going to come back as we go through this conversation, but I just want to summarize a little bit what you said there. So the busy mind was only seeing the obstacles, was only seeing the challenges. And the still mind was able to see the solutions and be able to navigate through the challenge, not ignore the challenges and obstacles, but have more clarity about how we're going to get through this, because you're in a creative space. And then that impact that you're having on the team. Everyone wants to be treated well, with respect. They want to be treated by their boss in a way that isn't snappy, that isn't that kind of reactive nature. And you reflected on that earlier in the discussion as well. That's a one for us all to keep learning on, is about how we treat other human beings, and a more still mind is ready to emotionally engage with people, which I think that was a wonderful lesson there. Thank you, Kristine.
Mm-hmm.
You said something earlier I want to come back to. You land in either Davao or in Jamaica, and you said you had to realize that your culture isn't necessarily right, that there's more cultures in the world. Tell us more about that.
I'd like to share something as basic as religion, for example. And I know it's a sensitive topic, but instead of Jamaica, I'd like to use my experience in Hong Kong, right? So when I was living there, there were a couple of temples around, and I found them very fascinating. Hong Kong, I think, is primarily Taoist. So a friend of mine is a local, and she brought me to one, and she was trying to explain, why they light the incense, what those sticks are and what they mean and how they interpret it. I think having grown up here in the Philippines with a very Catholic culture or Christian culture, for me, it was just so different. And I'm like, why would they do that? Why would they let sticks determine, their fate and believe it, right? But then you have to realize that I don't think in this grand master plan of this universe that there's just one truth, and that truth is the only, right? You choose that, right? Like I chose my religion in the same way that they chose theirs. And if they're good people and they're impacting society well, I don't think it could be discounted that there are lessons to be learned in that. So I took that everywhere I went, right? So even when I lived in Europe, the transportation system is just crazy. So, even applying that in the way that, Hong Kong was so easy. You tap a card, you're good, right? You go everywhere. In Europe, there's, areas where you can use cards, and some just accept coins, some accept tickets where you have to buy. But then again, my culture here in the Philippines is for me at least, us driven around. So bringing that to that, meaning saying that, hey, it's not just always right that I would say, I wish I had the oyster card or the clam, right? Or the octopus. It's just it's not the right thing to expect that in a different country. You just have to be accepting of what they have and then try to navigate yourself within that, because changing a whole country is going to take another level of leadership that's probably, involving government and everything else. But in the little area of influence that I have, which is myself and my team, I should be able to accept them for who they are, what they bring to the table, the systems that they know, listen first. And then after they bring their ideas, right, that's where I can bring in mine as a plus one. In fact, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and it was with Stephen Shedletsky. I hope I pronounced his name right. So Shed was saying, in the workplace, for example, you have to have candor and create that space where it's open. And I think if you're coming from a point of view of, I have 10 million filters that I'm the only one right with my cultural choices, or filters around gender, or filters around my old company is better than yours, or you know what I mean? Because I just joined a new company. So if I had that, I wouldn't be able to create an environment where I could solicit ideas and listen to them and then create together. I think that's the beauty of having a team, creating together. But if I'm not creating the safe place for them to be honest and speak up, right? That's what he was saying. Speak up. Then it's going to be my ideas all the way. And I don't think I will ever grow with just that. As a leader, you also have to be humble enough to realize that you're not the only one that can solve this problem. And the classic saying of two heads is better than one, then that actually delivers better results. And we've created a bunch of great projects in this new company that I've joined.
There's 3 really deep layers of everything you just said, if I can summarize it back, and I'd love to hear your views on this summary. So the first thing I heard was about that different is not wrong. So different is not wrong.
Yeah.
Different is just different, right? So having an understanding of that. The second thing I heard then was about acceptance. And you use this metaphor and analogy of going into a country and don't look for your home country in that new country. Accept what is there, accept it as it is. But then you brought that into the workplace, and you're creating an environment where you're employing people and you're accepting them for who they are and allowing them to show up as their authentic self.
100%.
So that they can bring their gifts to the table. And then from there, you're creating the environment. This is the third one. You're creating the environment where people can show up with their gifts, and you're allowing them to flourish in a way of co-creation. And the co-creation is the result that you create together is greater than the sum of the parts. By going, okay, let's just hypothetically go, I've got a team of 7. Now I've got 7 thinkers in the room, not 1. And we can build off each other and hold space for each other to the point where we can co-create something that none of us individually could have created. How does that sit with you?
100%. And I think that process of co-creating is something that a lot of the leaders miss, especially in this day and age of information, right? Because we tend to just, at least especially in my space, there are a lot of reports that comes in. Then you just tend to look at the report and then have a summary of biases that you already have. Oh, this is not going to work, or why is this so low? It's never going to get to where it needs to be in 2 weeks. And then you start to look at whose fault is it, right? Who's the owner? And that's when they miss it. Because I've also had another company, I've joined another company where I had some experiences that was like that. And I think, you reflect, I think for myself, right? I reflect back and I realize, there are some leaders that I really look up to, but there are certain traits of theirs that I don't want to imbibe. And in the quietness of being away, right, I really had to think hard about who I was, who I really want to be and continue to grow into as a leader, right? So, when I was able to pre-select what I really want, to be in this new company that I've joined, I said that I would be a very open-minded leader and listen to people and make sure that, they feel that they're counted. And I think in that, the process of co-creation is something that allows us to transcend many challenges like COVID, and we're in a people environment working, managing thousands of employees work at home is a hard task to do, but we were able to do that, right? And like I said, some leaders miss that because they just think they're the smartest in the room. And they think they have all the solutions. And without soliciting others' opinions, even if it's outside of your scope of influence. For example, I know nothing about IT. So, I have this guy, Jay, that works with us. I always ask him, like, Jay, what do you think? Or, Man or HR, I always just say, Man, what do you think? How do you think we should approach this, right? It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion of my own. I just want to listen first so that I can help integrate everything or synthesize everything, and make the best make the best decision for the best possible outcome.
I'm hearing three things there again, Kristine. I'm going to work backwards this time. So on that last one, so many leaders turn up thinking that they know the answer to every question or they're the smartest in the room, and it's a big limiting belief. It's a limiting factor in any leader's career if that's the way that you're thinking. You're employing these people for their intellectual capability, not for their arms and legs. So why would you pay people a decent salary and then not listen to them, right? You're paying them for that. You're paying them for the way they think. You're paying them for their expertise. Then I want to come back to the first thing you said in that little bridge. There was a big element there of intentionality. It started with reflection, started with looking at leaders around you and going, what traits and attributes do I like? Which ones do I not like? Starting to build a model of the leader that you want to be. And then I'm hearing you intentionally show up as that leader that you want to be. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about how you show up as the leader that you want to be and that you would be proud of.
Without discounting every mentor that I have or every leader that I've encountered, I'm not saying that they're wrong. They have brilliant traits, fantastic, entrepreneurs or sales people, because I was also part of sales in the past, or brilliant reports guys, right? The way they synthesize that and interpret it. But there were certain things that I found that was different from my value set. And like I said, different is different. Doesn't mean that it's bad or good. But I wanted to be a leader that was accessible, right? Because I've seen old school leaders where, hey, I'm in a meeting, you can't approach me or you can't message me. How come you're not messaging your first line manager first, right? There are a couple of people that are like that I've met. And I've experienced it firsthand where, being the receiver of that, I felt like, why can't I access you? You're the head of this company and I have a question for you. And I realized how much it actually stops idea flow, how it stops productivity, because then I have to go through 3 layers before I get to the decision maker, right? So I told myself, like, I'll be different. So certain things like that. And it was more experiential for me, I think. I learned a lot of those through experience, where I would say or see a leader that is very reactive and emotional who would curse a lot. And I said, okay, I don't want to be a leader that's like that. I want to be inspiring. So if I'm very reactive, I have to change that within myself to get to the kind of leader that I want to be. In fact, I think I'm very much influenced by, and maybe I'm rushing this part of our conversation, but I'm very much influenced by a poem my father actually sent me before when we were kids. And it's actually by Rudyard Kipling. So it's a poem called If. It says something like, if you can walk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings and not lose the common touch, then you'll be a man, my son. And I realize, that when we talk about a man, that to me is what I want to have. as my leadership brand, where I can talk to my clients, I can talk to the head of the company, but then I can talk to the janitors and the security guards with the same level of respect, because it is what makes the company. I don't think that without the reports guy, without the IT guy that repairs the computers, or without the person cleaning the office for safety, sanitation, and health, I don't think that it will work. So it cannot just be that we're all presidents or we're all finance guys. Then who else will do the other job? So what makes a company great would be everybody else that comes as their best self for that day. And it is up to the leaders to set that culture where they're allowed to thrive, where they're allowed to laugh, right? Where they're allowed to be themselves, because that creates that safe space for them to be able to speak up.
Yeah. Yeah, really good, Kristine. So what I'm hearing there is you set out to make sure that you don't just mimic the behaviors of a leader before you. And there are many people that do that. They think, oh, that's the model of what leadership looks like, and they start replicating it. And that's how we end up with a replication of alpha-style leaders, because we've had generations of them, right? So, but you didn't. You paused, you reflected, you did the deep work to understand your own values. You brought up the word values. Mm-hmm. You also reflected back on how did previous leaders make you feel, right? So how did they make you feel? Which ones inspired you? Which ones demoralized you? Which ones gave you a bad experience at different times? And I'm hearing that you chalk those up as all lessons to become the leader that you are today. And then that you set with great intentionality to be relatable to people from all walks of life, from the janitor to the CEO to the prime minister of a country, right? And then you're creating an environment where everyone can bring their gifts to the table, because you know that it's the collective that can do great things, not the individuals. Yeah, that's really amazing, Kristine. How do you keep yourself accountable to it, right? So you've set an intention of the leader you want to be. Do you have any tips or tricks on how you then check in with yourself to make sure you stay true to that leader?
How I check in is, at the end of the day, I try to reflect on the most intense parts of the day, right? So intense meaning the ones that I had the most interactions with a larger group of people, or that one-on-one that I had scheduled, right, with the team. Where was I harsh? I ask myself, because I have a tendency to be really strong and come out strong. So I ask myself that. Was I too harsh in that conversation? Was that too much of tough love, right? And then I go back, actually, after that, I go back the next day and phone that person myself and say, hey, I knew I gave really harsh feedback or direct feedback. I don't want to call it harsh, but in the Philippines, direct feedback would come off as harsh. And then I'd talk to them about the why I want to do it and what's in it for them.
Okay.
Why I'm coaching you this way? Why am I pushing you this way? It's because I want you to improve in certain things, and here are your blind spots. But here are the things that you're good at that you can build on, right? So those are the things that I try to balance and play with. But again, it has a lot to do with, what goes on in your mind at the end of the day. That's why you need some quiet time, or before you start your day. Really depends on the person. Are you a morning person, evening person? I'm an evening person, so I try to reflect in the evenings.
We're huge fans of self-reflection. You probably know that. We talk about self-reflection a lot on the show, and we teach self-reflection in our program. So absolutely wonderful to see that's working for you. The two things I'm hearing there about the check-in is that you're not just doing it yourself. You're going back to the person and you're checking in. Like, so if you've caught yourself in a self-reflective moment going, oh, I wonder if that landed very well, you're actually going back to that individual and checking. That's very powerful, Kristine.
There's another one that I use to self-reflect as a leader, right? I openly say, like, to my team, hey guys, if I'm becoming too much, please tell me. Because in the heat of the moment with somebody really passionate and driving things, trying to execute, sometimes you forget the environment you're operating in. You forget each individual has their limits and constraints. My budget might not be their budget. So I have a pretext where I say, hey, this is going to be a tough few months because of this particular project. So when I get too much, please let me know. I have that pretext, and it allows me to give them that space to give me feedback as a person, not just as their leader, not just because I have a title. And I liken this to Hans Christian Andersen's Emperor and His New Clothes. You remember that? I always tell myself I don't want to be that, where I'm already looking like a fool and no one tells me.
Yeah.
So I always try to say, hey guys, is that too much? What do you guys think? That's why in the middle of the project or the heat of things, when things get really emotional, I always solicit ideas. You know that they start to hold back when it's very quiet, even on an online meeting or in a boardroom. When people start to be quiet and they hesitate, right? You have to encourage them to speak up. Meaning like, guys, this is not a monologue. Please help me out. I need more ideas. That's when they start to give, their opinions. Or do you think there are risks to this decision? And that's when they start to give their opinions. And if no one is speaking up, the other thing that I do is I call them out. Like I call them by name. So, I would say, I have a teammate, Alvin and Dre. So I would say, Dre, come on, I'm sure you have ideas, or I'm sure you're hesitating on something, on this particular thing that we're trying to do. You're hesitating on something, I could see it, right? So you have to be aware of their body language too. And I'll say, please tell me what's on your mind.
Really good, Kristine. There's an interesting thing that came up early in that little piece. You said earlier that when you gave the example of giving someone feedback, that you were helping them with a blind spot. The thing I want to say to everyone in the audience, I hate to break it to you, but you all have blind spots. And what Kristine's talking about here is empowering her team for her team to show her what her blind spots are. So if she has gotten too intense at any point or whatever, that she's empowered them to be able to speak up. She's then encouraging an environment of a speak up culture in those environments, but sometimes you do need to encourage them a little bit more, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
There.
Actually, blind spots would be a great thing to talk about, Mick, if you don't mind, right?
Let's go for it.
I attended one seminar because it's hard to define what a blind spot is, right? It's hard to define, like what is it, right? Is it your weakness? Not necessarily, right? But we all have our blind spots. So that word, actually, when I attended a seminar, I realized that, in the realm of knowledge, like if this is everything, if we can put it in a circle, everything that we know, there's a small pie that we could say we know. That's like the realm of I don't know. But that I don't know is hinged on what you know. Meaning, I know I can't speak. I know I can't speak French, so I don't know that, right? I know I can't speak Spanish, so I don't know that. I know I cannot program a computer, so I don't know that. It's hinged on what we know. But everything else, that's your blind spot.
Yeah, it's what you don't know that you don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Things that
perfectly said.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, all right. I'd like to dig into a few things from your background, Kristine, that might bring some additional richness to our conversation. I know from some of the roles that you've been in that you have been sent from the company into areas where the team might be struggling, and you've done a bit of a turnaround.
Yes.
For all of the leaders out there that end up in that situation, they get parachuted into a team that's been struggling. Maybe the previous leader was not doing a good job, or for whatever reason. How do you do a turnaround of a team to get them back to some level of high performance?
Well, you're going to have to come in knowing that, there's a certain portion that's for people. There's a certain portion that's for the process, certain portion that it might be the tools, right? It might be an external event that happened or an internal event that's happening that's causing this whole chaos. And I think this is where the word management comes in, because you should be able to manage at least the process or recreate a new process. You should be able to minimize the errors in the tools, right? You can't manage external events. It's too big for you to manage if it's a political rift or whatever in the country that they're operating in, or a client saying, I'm done working with you. And then there are internal events that could probably be managed, right? In the form of setting expectations where people are saying, we just want to leave. We don't want to work for this company because payroll is not paid on time. But the people, you're going to have to lead the people. So it starts with, selecting a core group of individuals that's willing to, see it from the company's point of view. It starts with setting expectations and at least a realistic goal to hit. You can't just go say, I want to turn this around and make it profitable, by 3 times out of air. So it has a lot to do with making sure that you do your homework beforehand, study the data, interview people, talk to people, right? Talk to stakeholders. When I talk about people, everybody in the company, you have to interview them so that you remove any bias that they may have with each other. If one department is saying that department is hiding money or that department is stealing or that person is dishonest, then you talk to both sides so that you see both sides of the story. I think, a leader, as a turnaround leader, your job is to try to find out what the truth is. And I always tell my team this: the moment you get to the truth, you can start fixing things. What's the truth? So I always ask that. Okay, so you don't like this person, but what's the truth? Why did the process fail? Why didn't anyone pick this up? Right? What's the truth? Is it just because you can't work together? Okay, then I'll put you in different departments. Right? Then you can make sound decisions like that. But the bottom line is, what they fancily call like root cause analysis. I just want to call it the truth. What's the truth, guys? And then from knowing the truth, you can start to pull them to the bigger truth, which is, hey, we're not doing well. So we're going to have to fix this together. And this is where you set the goals. And then from knowing the truth in what actually broke down, is it the generator set? Is it because, there's a recording tool that is not working? If that's the truth, then we can find another vendor, replace it. And we're not stressing about it anymore. So part of the turnaround, apart from getting a core group, interviewing people, asking for the truth, is also working on a plan. And this is where a lot of people miss it. They think a plan is just a big plan. I always want to break it down to what your strategic plan is, what your tactical plan is, and what your operating plan is. And then you have to have at least 3 sets of outcomes in your mind. What could be the best outcome? What could be realistic? And what could be the worst case? Right? And I always think, and this is what I tell my team, worst case, guys, because we've already put so much work in this planning, the worst case is we have 0 impact because no one plans to fail. No one sets out a plan and then it goes, it goes down, right? If you have willing individuals, it's working. At least if the plan or certain parts of the plan, like there's an external shock, there's another internal person trying to destroy the team. At the very least, we should be able to control that and have 0 outcome. Then we can tweak our plan, right? But I think the next phase of the plan is to set good assumptions and then see if we can realistically, reach those goals. So I talk about plans this way, where I have a certain set of outcomes. I have the big plan, the tactical plan, and then the operational plan. The operational plan, because I'm an operator, will involve the who, what, when, where, why, right? All of those questions needs to be answered for us to be able to create the move forward plan. Then we have to define your task, if it's short term, medium term, or long term.
So there's 3 very key things that I'm hearing there, and I want to work on the second one mostly, so I'm going to do it in a slightly different order. The first thing I heard is that you're coming in and you're doing a lot of listening. So you're doing a lot of listening, seeking first to understand, then to be understood. And as part of that, you're also identifying what is in my control and what is not in my control. And I'm hearing you table things. I'll be careful with that word. It means something else in the US, but I'm hearing that you're working on the things that are in your control and you're accepting the things that are not in our control and just saying, well, that just is. Can't do anything about it. It just is. We have to work around it. Okay, the third thing I then heard is around all of this planning and getting ready to adapt the plan if you need to, but having planning, having objectives and having clarity. The one I want to unpack is this thing about the truth. That's really powerful. So once you get to the truth, you can find solutions, is what I heard you say. And I heard you talking about interviewing different people and this from different departments. And this is the one I want to see if this is what I heard. For me, it's about testing assumptions that people have been making that they believe to be true, but they never tested whether it was true or not. So, for example, I'll just throw out something really crazy and just say, oh, but that's just because Jane in accounting wants to blah, 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 blah. Is that true? Did you test that? Is that really what she's trying to achieve, or is she trying to achieve something else?
Can you show me the data? Yeah. Can you show me that report? Those are the things that you have to ask.
So it's these perceptions that people get in their head that they probably believe to be true, but did they ever test that it was true? And when you uncover those, yeah, that's quite powerful.
Or even putting people together in the same room. So yeah. She said, he said. So what I'm going to do is, okay, let's set a meeting. So put the same two people in the same room and then let's talk about this. So I heard you say this. I heard she said this. So what's the truth?
What's the truth? Where's the truth in the middle? And it could be in the middle, by the way. Yeah, okay. And then what I'm hearing there is you start getting to a level of empathy. So you already are coming in empathetic and ready to listen and see other people's perspective. But maybe getting those people together, they'll start seeing each other's perspectives and start empathizing. Instead of complaining about the other person, they start empathizing with the other person in terms of whether it's cognitive empathy or emotional empathy. They start seeing the world through their eyes, and then the truth will emerge. Okay.
Well, the job of the leader is, after they've figured out that there's one truth, taking emotions aside or hearsay aside, there's one truth. Now, how do we bring this where we are to where we need to be? That's the leader's job, to show them what is possible.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. That's a powerful one around this turnaround. I think there's something in there for everyone. One more I want to explore with you, because you come from the BPO industry and we haven't had someone from the BPO industry on the show yet. I'd like to explore some of the nuances that are in there. The Philippines is renowned in BPO and for good and bad results sometimes. Like sometimes there's a perspective that that's a good thing. Sometimes some people have got negative views about what that means. The one that I've got some curiosity about is, even yourself, Kristine, you finished work this morning at 5:30 and then you jumped on an interview with me, and thank you for doing that. You've been working all night. How do you inspire and maintain the motivation of a team that is working the midnight shift pretty much permanently? What are the challenges that come along with that?
It's actually very brutal, but I think the people that I work with have already adjusted. They've been in this industry for so long, but yet we get, fresh graduates that join us. They don't realize that, it's brutal to the body. It's brutal to the mind. And also that when they come out, it's basically everybody else is at work. When they want to hang out, everybody else is asleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not, or when they want to hang out, everybody else is at work and you're the one, trying to get out of work and then trying to look for people to hang out with. This is why it starts to create we created our own community around it. I think it's very important that you become really good friends with people at work, not to a personal level where it becomes unprofessional, but I find that having a support system that you need within work helps. The other thing too would be, as I always tell new joiners or new champs, they have to be healthier than the person working the day shift. Because if they don't regulate the way they sleep, it's going to be tough on the body, and it's going to be tough mentally, and that's when they start getting demotivated. No amount of money can compensate for that when you feel physically crappy. Right? So we have our own tricks. We say, you have to get blackout blinds. Sleep is very important, right? I know a lot of people would say, oh, sleep is for the weak. I don't believe that, because when you're better rested, I think you can make sharper decisions at work, and also operate at your best, meaning you have the energy and stamina to carry your tasks through. But sadly, in this industry, there are some leaders that are also the ones egging their team to, let's go for a drink, and probably that comes with a bit of youth, right, and immaturity. So let's go for a drink, let's stay up all day. I'm not saying you can't have fun, but I'm just saying for the rest of the folks out there, please be cognizant of when your body is telling you to rest. Be aware of that and make sure that you actually allow your body to do that.
Okay. So I'm hearing maintaining your well-being, maintaining your energy systems is the number one. That's the starting point. What about, I'll just throw a hypothetical. Someone is 3 a.m. in the morning, they're having a bad day. Do they ever go, just stop and go, why am I doing this? And lose focus on their purpose?
Yeah, 100%. This is why you communicate your big why to the team. If you're a leader that doesn't communicate why we do the things we do, like for example, in our BPO, we're a healthcare provider. If we don't pick up the call, there might be somebody that needs their medicine and their prescription. And it's up to you to make sure that gets delivered in the middle of this pandemic when no one is allowed to be out. So you treat that call as important, or even as simple as an internet connection, right? We do have clients that might be in the telco space. I used to tell my customers that, you have to think about it in the US because our customers are based there. There might be a single mother who's working from home, and this is her bread and butter. Why she's high strung is she got disconnected and she needs to get connected right away for her to be able to provide to her family. You have to see the story behind what we're doing or the process that we're trying or improve. Then there's the bigger why. Because it always is like also what's in it for me, right? Okay, I get it. That's for my customer, but what's in it for me? Why am I doing this? And I always say, because your performance will mean also more jobs here in the Philippines, jobs that no one wants to do. But yet here, it's a meaningful, work. It's meaningful work because they get paid better than other industries, right? The benefits are good. But at the same time, it's an industry that keeps teaching. And this is why I stick around in this industry. There's so many trainings that a champ or a team leader could do, like company provided training. And I always say that, there's no other industry that keeps giving, right? I think we give to our customers, we give to our employees by constantly teaching them how to be better people. And we're not biased. You see, some of the old school industries here, they would require college degrees or master's degrees. In the BPO, you could rise to a director level without even having a degree. So it allows people to thrive, but it's supported by a lot of learning. That's why, for me, I always say, my big why is to provide meaningful, dignified employment for the Filipino people. that whenever I say that and I share that to teams that I handle, then my managers and my frontline managers believe that what we're trying to create or what we're trying to build is something that's also industry building. The other thing too is I provide empirical evidence of why the industry should be respected. So for example, if you've been to the Philippines, I always say cities like Eastwood, BGC, Alabang Cyber Park, all of these other cyber parks, up north, like in Clark. A lot of those buildings are built purposefully because the BPO industry came. It elevated our internet connectivity. It elevated the way, buildings are built, the layouts, and it also made, the salaries here in the Philippines more competitive. Whereas everybody used to get paid at bare minimum. Now that the BPO employs so many people, it also made the other companies become more competitive in putting up their salaries or paying people higher. So, I'm proud to be in an industry that is economy building.
Yeah, I love this concept of the big why, and it's bigger than the boundaries of the organization that you're working with. It's bigger than you, bigger than the company. It's more about nation building. I really love that, Kristine. The three things that I heard there around purpose and about keeping that motivation. This is something that I'm sure that we've said this on the show before. I know that we teach this in our programs. If there's anyone out there that is struggling to understand why you do what you do and you're struggling to find your purpose, the questions that we encourage you to ask, and this comes from Zach Mercurio, is who did I help today? What other human being did I help do something today? And what would have happened if I didn't do it? And Kristine's examples, she had a single mother working at home whose very living or their salary is dependent on that internet connection. That person that needed to get their prescription filled. And it's very stressful if you're sitting there unwell and you can't get a prescription filled. So what would happen if you didn't do it? And then purpose starts to emerge in front of you when you see that. And then the second thing is, what positive impact occurs when I'm able to do this and do it well? And this is where Kristine's big why starts coming in, that when you're sitting there and you do a good job, it then means that the entire BPO industry and the BPO company that you're working for gets a good reputation, it wins more work, generates more jobs, generates the economy. So there's the individual why of the immediate impact if you didn't do it, and then there's the longer term, what is the positive impact of doing it well? How does that sit with you?
100%. It's the difference between doing the job and having a vocation.
Yeah, nice. I like that. All right, brilliant. This has been such a great conversation, Kristine. I've enjoyed it so much. I'm going to wrap it up now and go to our rapid rounds. So these are the same 4 questions that we ask all of our audience. I have a feeling you might have hinted towards one of them as we were going through the interview, but we'll see. So what's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
Well, that life isn't linear, no matter how much you plan. There are episodes in your life where you will fail. So I want to tell my 20-year-old self that. But what's important is you got to take the tough lessons, dust yourself off, get up and repackage without losing who you are. And that's important, the who you are, because that's who is the medicine you give to this world, meaning you have to have your own purpose as you keep repackaging.
Brilliant. I love it, Kristine. What's your favorite book?
Actually, it's The Little Prince.
Okay.
That's my favorite book.
All right. What's your favorite quote?
That coming from the poem If, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well done. And we've already covered that earlier. And finally, this has been a really interesting discussion, Kristine. How do people get in contact with you if they'd like to know more?
Well, I'm available in social media. So I'm both in LinkedIn and Facebook/Instagram. So.
All right, brilliant. And we'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes if that's okay with you, so
Sure.
people can connect with you if they'd like to know more about your insights here. It's been wonderful to hear your reflections on how you've grown as a leader by having a wonderful learning mindset, and then that reflection there on creating great cultures and environments where people can thrive. Thank you so much. It's been such a great pleasure today.
My pleasure, Mick. The pleasure is all mine, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to The Leadership Project at mixbeers.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel, where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.